So when you're a founder brand content, you want to make sure that you're appealing to a massive audience.
Even if like my content ends up on your feed, I still have to get your attention.
As an investment, I don't know how many brands it really makes sense for.
The same way that there's a customer journey, there's a content consumption journey. That journey brings you down from awareness down to super fan.
A lot of people just create a newsletter to create a newsletter.
But if it's a lean team and all of their money's being made by going all in on Instagram or TikTok, it's like, focus there.
It honestly is one of those channels that I think can have blowback.
Welcome to another episode of Sweat Equity. We're gonna get right into it today. We also have a short time frame. So what I'm gonna be talking about on my end, brand content strategy. The reason I'm gonna be talking about this is, so I've been putting out a ton of content relative to brands developing content strategies, but I kind of go really deep on different content types and formats and different ideation around content versus the actual strategy side of it from like beginning to end. So I have two parts that I may be going through. Part one is today, and then part two I'll hit next week. So and reason for that, you should like and subscribe because so you can make sure that you see part two. What do you got?
Pretty similar. So we got a lot of comments from people recently that were asking for a founder brand playbook. We talk a lot about founder brand content, but it's not always easy to come up with ideas.
Yeah. And
ideas are where everyone kind of stops with all content. I don't have enough ideas to scale up. So how do you look at, obviously we've talked about top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, but what are some ways to brainstorm ideas at each stage of the funnel so that you can build out that content pipeline and stay present on people's feed? Because if you don't do it, like we've talked about a million times, you're just going to, kind of drift into being irrelevant. So it'll probably complement a lot of the stuff you're saying. But it really stems from, that's been our number one comment for the last 3 episodes. Yeah. Everyone's like, do founder brand. Like, how do I do founder brand? So let's talk about it, because this is something that I actually think, my business specializes in creating this top of funnel content for brands. And so I want to talk about how we approach it.
Awesome. I think it'll integrate perfectly with what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about what I kind of label as like the media funnel. And so that's thinking about the different channels that are more top of funnel related channels, like a TikTok versus middle of funnel being a newsletter or YouTube, and bottom of funnel being podcasts, etc. I think what we should do is like, I'll talk about the top of funnel channels. Then you talk about ideation for those top of funnel channels, then middle funnel, bottom funnel, and we'll go from there. So, so the first thing I want to start with is like, and I'll give context on why. A lot of questions that I've been getting, especially because we launched Content Cafe, sign up if you haven't. Content Cafe is relative to like, people will be like, hey, should I be on YouTube? Hey, should I do a podcast? Hey, should I do a newsletter?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm not going to just say yes, right? Like you have to understand why you're getting on that channel if you're going to do something like that. But
the answer is also yes.
Right. It is, but it's not, right? It's like,
I don't know. I think if you are in, I should have started a newsletter a long time ago. I probably have a few K on my email list, even if I was just passively doing it. And so as far as like, should I do something? The answer is always, you should have started a long time ago.
I think it's where I'm disagreeing is if you are a branding or lean team and you have to be focused on what's driving results, just being like, hey, I'm getting, because I'm thinking on the brand content strategy. Okay. I think you're thinking founder.
Sorry, I thought you meant personal brand.
Yeah, you're thinking 100%. Founder.
You should
for you, it's like if you would launch a
Yeah.
newsletter, it's like, for sure, of course, have that newsletter. But if it's a lean team and all of their money's being made by going all in on Instagram or TikTok, it's like, focus there, like go all in there and then figure out like what the strategy is on the YouTube side before you dive into YouTube.
Yeah.
So the way I kind of look at the media funnel is from top down, and at the top of it, just like you have top of funnel content, what are the top of funnel channels? These are the channels. And again, this is to develop a brand content strategy. So when you're developing it, think of a media funnel through this lens so you understand why you get on certain platforms. So again, top of funnel channels, I'm thinking about channels that have the potential to have massive reach, massive distribution, to be able to gain massive attention and not like something like a podcast, right? Like we're 30 something episodes in, we get 20-ish thousand downloads a month across, audio and video. But for us to get 20,000, 30,000 views on Instagram, like I get that every single day, right? Slight.
I'm telling y'all, he's different.
But the idea is like, it's because I'm going to a top of funnel channel. It's a lot easier to win on those channels.
It's way lower signal. I mean, people are, you're going to get say we get a podcast episode with 1,200 views, we're going to get all sorts of inbound for our businesses from that.
100%.
You're going to get that, like, to get that same level of inbound on an Instagram reel, you probably got to hit like 50 to 100K views.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
That's 50 to 100X in terms. So like, it's just much lower signal.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
So the idea is like, so what are those channels? Those channels are Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube Shorts. Like those are the places where you're creating mostly short form content, even as short form text for Twitter, or I mean, even long form. But the idea is it's more of those platforms where you can go viral. You don't need a big audience to go viral. And those are the channels that, I don't want to say they require less work, but you can get a lot more output out on those channels. And so when I think about the funnel perspective, it's like, that's where I'd start. Most chances are like most companies should start on those platforms and start gaining attention there, because that is going to be the bridge to something else, right? That's going to be the bridge to what is middle funnel. And so on this end, I think a middle funnel is two parts really. There's the written side, which is a newsletter, and then there's the visual side, which is YouTube. They still have distribution built in, right? Like naturally, YouTube more than a newsletter, but it's fairly easy to grow a newsletter. It's fairly easy to use if you have 10,000 followers on IG. It's fairly easy to create a mini chat or add a CTA and funnel people to the newsletter.
Yeah.
And the same thing with YouTube. Like you can have a pretty good video and it gets 5,000 views, 10,000 views.
Before we go on though, I do want to mention, because a lot of people just create a newsletter to create a newsletter. And you have been in the newsletter business for a long time. If anyone doesn't understand, this is something where you're selling based on CPM, right? You're selling based on cost per click. So the whole business model is achieve some sort of critical mass of audience and then sell advertising. A lot of businesses want to start a newsletter, and then it's like this, it's more a community building initiative almost. Like it's a capture, right? Like we want people who may not have bought from us to still tune into what we're saying. But as an investment, I don't know how many brands it really makes sense for, because I've had a lot of clients be like, well, let's have a newsletter just to keep everyone informed. And it's like, you're putting out just mid content and probably just bugging people more 100%. Than you are actually like 100%. Engaging with them.
You have to have some kind of theme.
And it honestly is one of those channels that I think can have blowback, because if you put out some whack shit, there you go. No one's going to really like you that much. So be careful. Like if you're not going to do it right, that's a channel I would caution people against.
100%. And to actually go back a little bit, the reason for focusing on top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel, each one, they have different goals, right? Something that's very reach dominant, you're trying to get awareness, you're trying to drive eyeballs and attention. Now, middle of funnel, you're trying to develop essentially fans. You're trying to get somebody to really be more part of your ecosystem than just seeing your short form content on their feed. The way I think about the difference between top of funnel and middle funnel here is top of funnel, you're kind of interrupting somebody and you have to get their attention.
Yes.
Right? On Instagram, even if you follow me or the other 50,000 people, like
no, it's an auto swipe for me, bro.
Yeah, it's auto swipe.
You're too far gone.
But even if like my content ends up on your feed, I still have to get your attention, right? And that happens across the board on any platform. But the intent is different when it's a newsletter in YouTube or YouTube video, because at that point, somebody's choosing to watch you versus like trying to get somebody to watch you. When I go on YouTube, I know who I'm about to watch, and very rarely am I like going down the suggested rabbit hole, like views.
I actually think this is a good opportunity to like integrate the ideas portion of the segment. Because a lot of that brainstorming is where people, I don't think what you just said is, and I'm not saying it's not valuable, but I think it's understood by a lot of people. Like they know that like top of funnel is needed, and it's like you have to stop someone's scroll. Everyone knows. Like imagine us coming on here and being like, hey, why don't you try and add a hook in your video? It's like, for sure, it's like it's almost like demeaning. And so where do you find ideas? Like where do you find the right ideas for content in your top of funnel? And I think it's, you want to look at, so every business has a big market that they're a part of. And they're trying to serve a small problem probably in that big market. Like successful businesses are in a large market and they pick one specific problem that people in that market experience and they develop a unique solution for it, or they compete with an existing solution to deliver a better one. But so your top of funnel should be like content that's relevant to that target addressable market, like the biggest market possible. So, with Grind, for example, like we obviously had a Shark Tank pitch, and that's like the most top of funnel thing you can do is you have to appeal to as many people that are watching the episode as possible. And so a lot of this narrative was not necessarily like none of our pitch involved how the machine made you a better jump shooter.
Yeah.
Right? It was more so access and family oriented. People can't afford this. And so as a result, we developed this solution. So when you're a founder, brand content, like you want to make sure that you're appealing to a massive audience. 100%. And it's almost like your content should be adjacent to the market.
Yeah.
And so like, don't say 6 ball handling drills to become a better, say this is the funnest product for your summertime spent with your kids.
Yeah.
And like, it's such a unique way to frame things because it also like broadens.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to get so specific. You don't have to complicate
100%.
it for yourself. And it's so important to remain simple and clear on those ideas.
Just to add to that, because we do this a lot with Cut 30, where somebody will add in, they'll add their script and be like, what do you think about this? And they're like, I think it's, they'll be like,
like it's ass.
We do say that honestly a lot.
Yeah.
And they're like,
It's
I think
needed,
this
though.
is top of funnel content. It's like, this is why I started my watch brand. And it's like, that's not top of funnel content because like
Yes.
top of funnel content,
Right.
that is middle funnel, bottom of funnel, probably bottom of the funnel. And if you have no distribution, this video is irrelevant. Now, the way you can make it top of funnel is being like, this is what Elon Musk said that inspired me to start my watch brand.
Even more so, what I was trying to say about adjacent to the market, and I'll loop it into a framework that I'm starting to teach my team here. Instead of saying this is why I started a watch brand, say, do you think you can afford a Rolex?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you just said something very specific, very unique, and very relatable. And those are the 3 key components I think that any product focused video should
100%.
have. It's specific. Do you think you can afford a Rolex? No, bro, I'm broke. My bitch ass. And then the next thing is unique, right? I don't know. It's kind of like you don't really see that on,
It's a distinct angle.
You're seeing memes, you're seeing, viral videos. Like maybe you're seeing like, the Alex Garcia athleisure breakdown part 17. Who fucking knows? And the next thing is it's relatable because 99% of people can't afford a Rolex, right? So you're kind of appealing to the masses with that. Yeah. And also you're kind of setting this expectation. Like, I'm curious, like, well, how, I've never really looked into it. Like at whatever income level you're at, until you look into a Rolex, you don't really think about like, what 100%. Is the financing? Like it is a limited quantity. Like how do you actually obtain one? And you start creating this content that educates and entertains people about the watch market.
All right, hold up, pause. Yep, this is an ad. The time has come. We have one ad in the podcast, but it's from a brand that I use and I highly recommend, and I recommend to any clients that I work with, and that's Yotpo. Creating email and SMS campaigns is sometimes like solving a Rubik's Cube. One person just purchased a product and all of a sudden they're getting a bunch of irrelevant emails to irrelevant products, and ultimately they unsubscribe. Why? And this is because you got sequences all over the place. There's no segmentation and conditions preventing you from sending emails to irrelevant people, again, with irrelevant products. And honestly, that's costing you a lot of money, especially when customers unsubscribe. So Yotpo launched campaigns where you have this bird-like view of all your email and SMS touch points across all campaigns. And the coolest part is it's all in one place. So creating campaigns and sequences and monitoring different conditions is right in front of you at all times. So if you're cranking email and SMS, this is just gonna make your life easier. And straight up, the best part is it's free and you can take it for a spin by just clicking the link in the description. To like piggyback off of it, if you think about what Brian's doing, he's framing the hook differently and using like a already like big name brand to get you hooked in to then introduce your product. And so when we think about top of funnel, it's very different to say, hey, this is why I started this watch brand, to then be like, here's whatever you said, here's how much a Rolex, or do you think you can afford a Rolex? Do you think you could afford a Rolex?
Right.
Well, I couldn't. So I started my, you know what I'm saying? And now you used Rolex as like the bridge into your story.
And even more so, I think the way we're looking at top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel is when you introduce the product.
Yeah. And
I think that's like super important to me. Like if you're creating top of funnel content for your brand and you're trying to actually get your name out there, dude, gotta be honest, no one gives a shit about you at all. Like at all. And so you need to speak to, like, our friend Nathan had this amazing Kurt Vonnegut storytelling thing where Vonnegut was like, I'm making sure that the audience knows I care that they're giving me their attention.
Yeah.
If you're thinking that you're going to put out a video that's like inspirational about your story, and it has nothing about what's in it for the audience, or it's not made for the audience and it's made about you, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's why if you're saying this is why I started a watch brand, I don't give a fuck. If you're saying, do you think you can afford a Rolex? I'm curious, because now you're talking about me.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that that's every single person on social media. They're looking at a highly personalized dopamine
100%.
casino slot machine, you
100%.
know? And so every video you're earning their attention on, they feel like is relevant to them. So don't have this pretense that they're going to actually care about your story because it's inspiring. You have to get to the part where you can even introduce your story as inspiring.
And that's where I think that brand that we talked about last week, Poor Boy Coffee, and I made the video about them this week, where in the beginning of their video, and because they made a video that was kind of like that, where he's introducing his story, but he started with something that was relatable. Like, I'm trying to quit my corporate job to start a company.
100%.
You know what I mean? And naturally, it's like, instead of just saying, I started a coffee brand, it's, hey, something very relatable. I'm trying to quit my corporate job because I have this dream. Right. And now somebody that's viewing it as well, like the payoff is, I have that dream too. Like, I want to kind of follow his journey to see how he's doing it so that then I can do it.
Yeah.
And then you buy into the rest of the videos, because that video that he did, it got 4 or 5 million views. Right. Like, which is significant. It helped to grow his brand. Like,
but I truly think what you just said is another perfect example of if he had said, this is why I'm starting my coffee brand, auto swipe.
So let's do this. Let's do this live on the pod. It says, you saw Caleb doing a little bit of vlog, or Cade.
Come on,
there's so many Cade. There was Caleb in here. Then we were talking about another Caleb.
I fuck with Cade though. The audience will fuck with Cade.
It's just the tongue twister of Caleb, Cade.
What was the niche thing that you're blowing up on TikTok about? Japanese futons. That is the most interesting man in the world shit, bro. Like, this is an interesting dude. Charles just has a nice beer, bro. That's it.
I was just texting Charles. Okay, so let's actually do this live on the podcast, and I'll let you rip apart what I'm doing. So I'm gonna start my series that is, and again, I already have distribution, so like I know perform well, but I want it to pop, right? Like, I want this to get 1 million views. And so what I'm vlogging is, here's me, day in the life of trying to build $1 billion company while training for the CrossFit Games. How would you frame that hook wise? How would you turn that into what it is now and like, that's the central idea. So like, let's brainstorm how you take that central idea into today's hook.
You like being cinematic. Like, you're a really dramatic person, in my experience.
Dramatic?
Yeah, bro.
In what way?
I don't know. You just like, on
like the visual side?
Yeah, like you kind of want some like deep cut Nike inspo shit, right?
Yeah, but this is going to be vlog style. So this is going to be like this is shot on the iPhone. This isn't those stuff that Rudy shot that's like
got it.
Black, white, grungy.
Oh, okay. So this is more so
like Poor Boy Coffee.
Similar to what? Okay, got it.
It's very similar to Poor Boy Coffee.
I was gonna say, because I could totally see you hitting just like have you ever had a dream? You know what I'm saying?
You just fucked up my camera angle.
Yeah, it's hopefully it helps. Yeah, but like, so okay, how would I frame that? Because I do think, like, watch me build a $1 billion company while training for the CrossFit Games is like a highly niche, like, hustle porn audience. And so, like, how do we get you to appeal to like the masses? Low key, bro, you're a dad. I feel like you could lean into like, I think to make yourself a lot more relatable is like, you're doing so much. You're doing so many things. Like, you're building this company, you're becoming a CrossFit athlete, or you are a CrossFit athlete, but you're trying to become an elite CrossFit athlete. Like, those take up massive amounts of time. And so I think like your top of funnel content could be like how I stay present for my daughter despite working 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great piece of content.
Yeah.
And like, all of a sudden you're really giving an opportunity for your personality to come out while speaking to dads that are busy, because there are way more busy dads than there are CrossFit bros.
Yeah.
I hope there's not that many CrossFit bros out there in
There's
general.
a lot though. There's a lot.
I'm kidding. I'd love CrossFit bros. High Rocks, big NYC meetup. You saw
Huge
that?
NYC meetup. I was just talking to one of my friends, Brad. He used to do partnerships for 10,000 cc, but he was.
Do you like their shorts? I like their shorts.
Who's
10,000?
10,000s? I've never worn them, to be honest.
Okay. Back on the trainer.
But I think that's the right framing, is like, how do I find the certain different like parts of the day or of my life to make it more relatable? Because I think that the current framing of the idea is more aspirational and inspirational versus relatable. And if you want to reach mass market and you want this video to get 10,000 or 10 million views, 1 million views, you have to figure out how you make it more relatable, which is why, like, for example, Poor Boy Coffee's content
another
worked better.
framing you could use is a lot of people stop becoming athletes when they grow older. A lot of people give up on their athletic dreams.
Yeah.
I was a former athlete and I don't want to give up.
Yeah.
I need pursuit. Pursuit is the means to an end for a lot of happiness. Like, it's all about the journey. Like some real like motivational, like 100%. Don't give up type shit. Because, at that point, you get the opportunity to frame the challenge that you're going after, which is becoming, the best CrossFit athlete in the world. It's a massively ambitious goal. Like, you get to frame it in a way that this is just the thing you're doing.
Yeah.
But if I'm someone who also wants to pursue athletic achievement, then, maybe I want to run a marathon. You're not alienating the marathon people. You're actually relating to them. Your challenge is just different. And so that's way more top of funnel. But like building $1 billion company while training for the CrossFit Games, I think that's goated, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, like YouTube. Your fans will love that. But like your short form, like to really like go crazy viral, especially with the skill set that you're developing, it's like, I'm not saying sell out, but like go so much more broad with the appeal. Like busy dads, former athletes trying to stay fit, like you'd be vulnerable. You've been telling me you're leaning out the calves. You know what I'm saying?
I've been leaning out the calves?
Yeah, like you're saying your calves got leaner.
I never said that.
I don't know. That's okay. Switching up off camera.
You definitely talking to somebody else. I'm not even gonna go down this rabbit hole because we were talking about bulky shoes and ankle, but it had nothing to do with my calf. It had nothing to do with my calf. But I think what's interesting too is I can use that framing, right, of wanting to be an athlete, not giving up on being an athlete, to then introduce the idea of like, this is the hook. Mm-hmm. So now I'm trying to build $1 billion company while training for the CrossFit Games, right? Like I could use that hook as like the bridge into the context setting to understand what that series is.
And so it actually kind of ties into what I really wanted to hammer home for a lot of our audience, which is the definition of top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel also has a direct correlation to when you introduce your product. Yeah. So think of it in terms of like, what is the subject matter of the video? For what we just outlined, the subject matter that is the hook, it's the relatable, this is my pursuit. You also have a pursuit, so we're the same. But when you're talking about like your hook being watch me build, all of a sudden I think that's bottom of funnel because you're being so specific about this is the 100%. Product. And so how do you apply that to a product focused video? It's like we just did the gum segment, right? Where he's like, did you know that spruce sap is one of the most expensive ingredients in the world? And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Yeah. He just proceeds to go into like gum bases, petrochemicals, and like you're 30 seconds in just kind of watching this guy talk about how poisonous big gum is. And then all of a sudden he's like, and I'm building the solution. Versus his bottom of funnel is we're finally back in stock. Like we sold out a long time ago. It's just iPhone shot of the product. And so similarly, we've talked about this concept. It's Trojan horse content. Yep. You want to establish the problem in someone's brain so that by the time they're ready for a solution, you can introduce your product.
It's primed for that.
That sweet spot, in my opinion, is around 8 to 12 seconds in a short form video, because you're still in a window of time where most people are going to see it. If your average watch time is, 8 to 12 seconds, most people are going to see the product. But
damn, that's a bad average watch time.
What you trying to say, bro?
Well, I guess TikTok and Instagram it's a little different.
No, I mean, honestly, watch times vary dramatically across. It's like not even a standardized thing on brands, at least, that I'm seeing.
Did you watch the episode with Colin and Samir with the CEO of Instagram?
Masseri?
Yeah.
I struggled to watch him talk for long periods of time.
Really?
I just get mad at him. Yeah.
You should watch this episode.
I know.
It's a really good episode.
I just sound like glasses, like curly headed vibe. Just want to punch him. Don't shadow ban me. So, yeah, I think like when you introduce the product is super important. Like if it's bottom of funnel, you should introduce the product immediately.
Yeah.
Like you are trying to put the product in front of people that are ready to buy, but to get their attention, to get a critical mass of views, you should wait till like 8 to 12 seconds.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you've had a chance to establish a problem and you're introducing the solution.
Yeah. I always like the idea of you're creating content to gain followers, and then you're creating content for the followers. Yeah. Usually creating content for the followers is that bottom of funnel, even middle of funnel content that usually peaks at like 50,000 to 100,000 views for middle of funnel. And then bottom of funnel is like 10 to 20, depending on how big let's say you have 100,000 followers or 50,000 followers, whatever it is. So it is understanding that bottom of funnel content, it's never going to perform crazy good. There's obviously outliers. There's always exceptions to the rule, but that content is going to drive results.
Well, and it's just a different KPI.
Yeah, very different KPI.
It's a completely different KPI because
you're driving action.
Yeah,
like the whole goal is
you're
to drive
driving
action.
conversion, and so like you just got to measure against other videos that are driving conversion. And that's why this whole process exists, is because these are separate outcomes that you're going after, and so you can't measure them against each other. And
so I want to go now back into the middle funnel and kind of talk about the different channels there. So there's two that that we're really talking about. The first one being YouTube, second one being the newsletter. I think the biggest problem with anybody that executes within these and they're trying to execute a strategy there, they just think of random ideas versus when you're really trying to do YouTube well, when you're really trying to do a newsletter well, you have to think of it from the lens of, this is my TV show. This is my TV series that I'm creating. Like you said, if you just put together random shit for a newsletter and you just test and you throw it out there, you're going to annoy people. But if you think of it as like, okay, I'm trying to recreate this. I'm trying to recreate this show in a written format. I'm trying to recreate this book in a written format, or whatever it is. Yeah. You're trying to recreate something into some kind of theme, some kind of series, so that everybody, or every time that it hits somebody's inbox, they have an expectation and you're just meeting that expectation. And then they continuously expect that over time. And you just build that habit. Someone that does this well outside of us is like Kane. Right? Like every week you're getting the blueprint. You know what to expect. You know, he's going to break down his growth, his monetization, his different ideas around it, but you know what to expect. Like he's formed that TV show in somebody's inbox. The same thing with YouTube. Everybody that's doing YouTube well has some kind of show that they're creating. Yeah. Right. And whether that's Mr. Beast and it's a game show, when you really break it down to what it is, it's a game show. You look at Nick Bear and BPN, it's like he's documenting some kind of journey to, hey, I'm running a 2:45 marathon. So it's like, that is the show. Yeah. And now there's 12 episodes leading up to the finale of that show and him trying to do it.
You know who did this really well is a guy named Danny Duncan. Have you seen Danny Duncan?
Why does it sound familiar?
He blew up because he came up with the t-shirt Virginity Rocks and sold it in like PacSun and a bunch of different stores like that. But so his content format is just like wilding out at the ranch. So he's just got like this cast of characters and they just blow shit up and they just shoot guns. And like a lot of the novelty of his videos really comes from just the unpredictability of what could happen when you blow up a couch and your buddies are on it. It's like they're going to go flying and like you're going to get a hilarious outcome. So his setting is always the same. It's always like this house. And so that builds up so much affinity over time and it really becomes like a series, even though there wasn't like a ton of, he's not like scripting anything. It's just kind of like his core focus is like, I'm just going to do some crazy shit, but it's always going to be at the same place with the same character.
And this is like a reality show. Like if you bring it back, like if you peel back the layers, it's a reality show. Yeah. It's his version of a reality show. 100%. So people know what to expect from it. Same thing with like the Keeping Up with the Kardashians or something like that. And the last thing because there's so much to go down, but we have 7 minutes. This might be a 3-part like series, which I think would actually be super valuable because we could package this up as lead magnets. We could do a lot with this. Yep. Bottom of funnel is now, how do I develop super fans? How do I get something? How do I give more to the people that like love everything about me or the brand or whatever? And this is podcasting. It's this. Like there is no distribution built in unless you have an episode go viral. Like, and I think a good example of this is the Shannon Sharp episode with Cat Williams. Yeah. Right. Like there's so many episodes with Shannon Sharp that did okay numbers because he has a big audience. And then there's the outlier that completely popped off, was everywhere for weeks, created all this, drama and all this different things.
But that's because Cat Williams was much broader than Johnny Manziel.
100%.
And there's the subject of those two podcasts is such a good example, because the subject of the Cat Williams stuff, they're going down like Illuminati shit.
Yeah.
They're talking crazy.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the Johnny football one was just like an interview about
his journey and
football
shit, yeah.
and like his journey, and like you needed some sort of context about
100%.
Johnny to really be that interested in it. Versus the Cat Williams one was like, that's just
Bro, it was
broad
just interesting.
entertainment.
It was just interesting.
broad
It was like,
entertainment.
I want to hear the shit that he's about to say.
Talking about Diddy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
No, it was wild.
And so the whole idea there is that bottom of the funnel piece of content. So if you're like, should I create a podcast? It's, well, do you have top of funnel and middle funnel dialed? Or do you have a big enough audience there that you could funnel down to a podcast that having super fans is going to help you do something? For us, we have kind of like these higher ticket offers where it makes sense for us because we convert on the back end of this. So two companies that I'll break down. One I've talked about a lot is BPN. Like they have the whole funnel dialed. They kind of run it through Nick Bear and even BPN, but mostly through Nick Bear. Top of funnel channels. Nick has 1 point something million followers on IG, something 100,000 on TikTok. I don't know about Twitter and LinkedIn. There's probably no purpose for him really using that. But then middle of funnel, you look at, they do have a newsletter. Then they have Nick's YouTube channel, which has 1 point something million subscribers. And it's a TV show. And then bottom of funnel, they have Nick Bear's podcast. And so they did the whole like media funnel that takes you from becoming aware of BPM and Nick to, okay, I want to follow the journey to, I love everything about this guy and what he stands for, that I want to consume all of his content and anything else he puts out, and I want to listen from him, take advice from him. Another brand that's not built around a founder that does this really well is Bandit Running. I don't know if you've ever consumed their stuff, but like
I have a little bit.
Yeah, they do a really good job top of funnel on Instagram. Middle of funnel, they have YouTube series where they highlight all their runners and what they're racing for and what they're like training for. Then they also have a newsletter that's very specific around running and training for running. Then bottom of funnel, they have an exclusive podcast for runners.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so like the whole idea is people wear our gear and they love us and they want more of us, and the people behind the brand, okay, we have YouTube, we have the newsletter. Then you really, really fuck with us. Like you really love this brand and you want to learn more from those people. We have the podcast. Yeah. And so now it's this idea of that I've been wanting to write about for a long time. It's like the content consumption journey. There's like the same way that there's a customer journey, there's a content consumption journey where you start somewhere, and that journey brings you down from awareness down to super fan. And there's a lot of touch points in between.
There's also one inflection point that I'm starting to notice with Nick is he's starting to loop in a lot of these local Austin influencers to his crew as well. And so he's slowly building an army of other people and they all look up to him. And so it just reminds me of like how like the Nelk boys were able to like make a star out of some of their more recent additions. Yeah. And it's really crazy how once you build that name brand, you can combine forces with others. 100%. And then because that's something a lot of brands do really well with partnerships and collabs, but I think more could really go after that and drop like co-branded stuff and see a lot of success. Quick pod. Cool. We'll have a part 2 next week, but if you enjoyed this, let us know. This was directly inspired by y'all's comments on YouTube. So whatever you want to see us talk about, if there's a brand you want to see, we noticed that y'all have been mentioning a lot more examples. So trying to bring a lot of more specific like brands that are doing the things we're talking about to make it easier. But the comments really help us create better content for y'all. So keep them coming.
Yeah, guys, this will be probably a 2 to 3 part series all about developing a founder brand content strategy, etc., and then a brand content strategy. So it'll be probably 2 to 3 part series. There's still so much to go through on content ideation, audience consumption diets, introducing characters. Like there's so much to touch on. We'll do probably realistically probably a 3-part series. And then this is going to be honestly like your 3-part like playbook to being able to go from A to Z. So we'll get that in the
probably
next
put
episode.
It behind a paywall for several $1,000s, but
nope,
if you're
free game.
to the Sweat Equity Podcast.
Honestly, I thought like because we have a trademark that we're trying to buy for Sweat Equity. I thought about if there was another name that we'd go with. I think free game is not a bad game.
But the whole reason I didn't do that is so Virgil
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
did the free game thing, which fucking
R.I.P.
sucks because I didn't know. Like, is there anything worse than coming up with an idea that you think is dope and then you like look it up and you're like, oh,
He has that
someone
crazy
already
site.
literally nailed
He has
this.
that crazy site.
Yeah.
All right, I got to bounce. Peace,
Cool.
guys.
Later.